Good afternoon and welcome everybody in this room of Utrechts Archief. And we have a particular history, we as BAC, with this room long before BAC really opened after reconstruction at the Lange Nieuwstraat, and long before there was heating in this room, and long before there were walls and glasses and all of that. We organized a couple of projects here until the moment we lost the building to proper infrastructure with heating and perfect acoustics and other. Welcome everybody one more time. As you see, I hope you found your badges, comfortable seats, and your folders with documentation that my colleagues prepared for you. And to start from there, I would like to introduce you to my colleagues, because they will be the ones whom you can approach at any moment during the day with questions and professional requests, and they will be ready to help you. And also to start with thanking actually for their commitment for organizing the projects with rigor and professionality as they do it. There sits Arjan van Meeuwen, my colleague, Merel Somhorst, running somewhere, Nick, Niels, Marike, Shema Bayram, and lots of volunteers who work with us. Thank you so much for your commitment and for making, for doing the work you doing with such a professionalism. If you look at the program, I've been warned that we're already late. I thought we were early, but only a brief moment for welcome and introduction is scheduled. But I hope you will understand that it's meant to be a warm welcome. I hope I will manage to communicate that to you, so that we can swiftly move towards what undoubtedly promises to be thought-provoking, exciting exchange amongst all of us, and together with our guests, artists, theorists, philosophers, activists, and other culture practitioners who have generously joined us for these sessions, for these 3 forthcoming sessions today and tomorrow. I'd like to share with you just very few notes on the series of public editorial meetings, without actually being able to go into an in-depth discussion of either the project Former West or the Former West thesis. Now, the project has been conceptualized as a long-term trajectory for collective thinking and research that gets interrupted now and then, interrupted at times by public renegotiations of the Former West knowledges, be it in the forms of international congresses that we have organized at various places around the world, research exhibitions, research seminars, research publications, and other, till they realized through, one could say, extremely intensive 6-year-long networked series of collaborations with artists, theorists, activists, but also art institutions and educational institutions, literally from all around the world. Now, we find ourselves within the project of Former West in a phase when we feel an acute need to pose and synthesize the Former West knowledges in a Former West book. If, however, Former West has consistently and loudly demanded that we rethink both the frame within which we think and work, but also the ways how we work, how we practice our profession, how we practice in the field of art, we thought we need to challenge ourselves and organize editorial meetings differently as well. And precisely at this moment, when the notion of the public seems to fail us, or we're failing that very notion of the public, I'm not quite sure how to formulate it, we chose to undertake this lengthy series of organizing public editorial meetings in various contexts, various constellations in the course of next two years. So we kind of chose to deprivatize our own work, our own editorial work, stop just commissioning texts by inviting contributors, writers to deliver texts and sit together as editors to ex post create a narrative in between these texts and contributions, but rather try to create a situation where these linkages and dialogues in between texts and various contributions can be actually sought while or before even these contributions are being offered or delivered. And of course, to deliberate about these contributions publicly, like at this moment with you. Now, the title of this public editorial meeting, Other Survivalisms, somehow prevents me from getting too romantic about this idea of getting together, right? Something that we customarily conceptualize as dialogue, participation, being together, exchange, horizontality. All those terms that so readily got co-opted by the neoliberal system of which we are part, and perhaps which they wanted as conceptual edifices of collaboration, participation, dialogue, which they wanted to challenge at the first place. In other words, what's really at stake at this very moment is the very notion of survival, and this is where former West meets the other BUCK research project, which is titled Future Vocabularies, and precisely its first inaugural vocabulary entry on the notion of survival. There would be a lot that one could say about the future vocabularies and this trajectory on the notion of survival, but perhaps just to be very short, with this project, while Former West aims at developing a critical understanding of the legacy of the citizen resistance to power in 1989 in order to understand our own present and kind of speculate about other futures. Probably the future vocabularies attempts to act out some concrete propositions that explore the shifts in our existing conceptual vocabulary, in our artistic, intellectual, and activist work. And as I cannot go in depth into this series of investigations, I perhaps could at least invite you to see the exhibition within this series on survival that is currently on view at BUCK, which is the exhibition by Dutch artist Arnold Mick, titled Cardboard Walls. And we keep it open for you till 8:00 p.m. today. Also folded in these efforts is BUCK's Learning Place, and I want to mention it specifically because it's the project within which students at art academies and universities in the Netherlands, Utrecht, the Netherlands, and abroad participate in BUCK's research within this notion of future vocabularies. And I'm happy to see a number of artists from Learning Place, specifically from MACU, MA program of the School of Arts in Utrecht, and from Master in Research, Art Research program from the Royal Academy of Art in The Hague. Before concluding, a few technical, practical remarks. As you realize, we're filming and streaming live, so greetings to all our digital participants, and thank you, Mark and Peter, for joining us to stream and to work further on BUCK's and Former West Digital Archive. Coffee tea is available all the time in this room. Feel free to stand up. Let's keep the situation informal and claim right to coffee and tea during the editorial meeting. Some Wi-Fi code, basic information as to how to connect to the world you'll find in your folders, and please turn your cell phones off. In place of the conclusion, this series of public editorial meetings are conceptualized by the Former West long-term collaborators and researchers Simon Scheik and Boris Boudin. I would like to introduce them to you, to those of you who do not know them, and thank you for your wonderful collaboration. Simon will moderate the first session today, and I invite him to open up this first session, and perhaps the very last remark. A colleague of mine who is editing a large volume of an important magazine on the notion of education, has written me, or wrote me yesterday evening, apparently from his editorial meeting, saying, Maria, I'm relieved our meetings are not public. I understand, but I want to say I'm really glad and excited ours are. And welcome everybody. Thank you.